Hello everyone, welcome to Law Excellence Daily Hindu News Analysis. Today we will be discussing some important articles that appeared on 15th June 2020. Before starting our discussion, we will look into a small announcement. Admissions have started for online live general studies PCM batch, Prelims cum Mains 2021 batch. For any queries, please call to this number 90521 93939. And we have our branches at Ashoknagar and Madhapur in Hyderabad and also at Chandra Layout in Bangalore. We also have a residential campus in Hyderabad called as Sri Gayatri Residential Campus. Today's personality for discussion is Ashok Kemka IAS. He is an 1991 batch IAS officer of Haryana cadre. He is very well known for his high values of honesty and integrity. In his 29 years of his career, he was transferred for almost 58 times, one of the highest transfers an IAS officer has seen in India. And he is very much known for exposing Sonia Gandhi's son-in-law Robert Vadra's DLF land grab scheme. And he was awarded the SR Jindal Prize in 2011 for crusade against corruption. And right now he is working as Director General in Archives and Archaeology Department of Haryana State. Now two things are important here from examination point of view. One is, can an IAS officer succumb to the political pressures to prevent the central government to transfer him or her? Can he succumb? Is it ethically correct to do so? This is one thing. Second thing, is it morally correct on part of central government to use transfers as a mechanism to silence honest and committed IAS officers or other bureaucrats? Is it ethically correct on part of central government or maybe state government? These two things are very much important from our ethics point of view as well as from governance point of view. And also you should know what are the various recommendations given by different committees and commissions with respect to the transfers. For example, Second Administrative Reforms Commission, which was constituted in the year 2005. So what was the recommendations of second ARC with respect to transfers? See, it recommended that there needs to be some fixed tenure, at least 2 years of tenure for an IAS officer or maybe for any other higher level bureaucrats in a particular position, so that they can get acquainted with that position and also they can serve in a better way. So these are the things which we should know from examination point of view. As usual, our discussion is categorized into two types. One is DEEP and the second one is TNA. In daily editorial news analysis, we will be discussing those articles that appeared on editorial pages of the Hindu. In targeted news analysis, we will be discussing those articles which came on the other pages of the Hindu. Here we have given the page numbers of Hyderabad and Bangalore edition. Please have a look into it. You can download the notes in PDF format given in the link in description box, and every day we'll be giving you a daily current affairs quiz which consists of 10 MCQs, and you can write this test which will open at 9:30 p.m. and you can log into elearn.logs.in and you can give this current affairs quiz, and it is for free. The first article for discussion is the need for an anti-discrimination law. There are two things very much important from examination point of view. The article strongly argues there is a need for an anti-discrimination law. So the question can be asked, is there any need for an anti-discrimination law? If it is needed, how an anti-discrimination law should look like? This is one question which UPSC can ask. And the second thing is the forms of discrimination. There are various forms of discrimination that are very much intrinsic to the historical and societal evolution of India. So for example, there are direct forms of discrimination and indirect forms of discrimination based on caste, based on gender, based on religion, based on region, and some other factors too. Now this can be asked from GS paper 1 society 2. Now the article is written in a context that recently two cricket players said they have experienced discrimination in India. One is Darren Sammy, West Indian cricket player. He said that he experienced racial discrimination while he was playing for Sunrisers Hyderabad in Indian Premier League. And one more cricket player, Irfan Pathan, who tweeted that, see, in India, we don't only have discrimination based on skin color, we also have discrimination based on region and also based on faith. These two tweets form the backdrop for the person to write an article. Now, what he mentions is that, see, discrimination is not a new thing in India. Historically, we have seen there are various forms of discrimination on the region, religion, caste, as well as gender on gender basis. So there are various forms of discrimination. For example, there is a direct form of discrimination and also there is an indirect form of discrimination. What the article says is that, see, indirect form of discrimination is more dangerous in India. Now it also quotes a judgment of United States Supreme Court which it gave in 1971, which acknowledges that how private sector uses this in forms of indirect forms of discrimination against various individuals. The article also mentions about Article 15.2 of the Constitution, which provides the citizens of India a guarantee against the state and other private players not to discriminate based only on grounds of religion, race, caste, and sex. And the article also mentions about a Supreme Court judgment given in 2005 which given preference to right to associate over Article 15 of the Constitution. So finally, what the article argues is that it demands for a comprehensive anti-discrimination law. Okay, regarding syllabus mapping, it comes under mains GS paper 1 social empowerment, and also it can be asked under mains GS paper 2 social justice laws mechanism for the welfare of vulnerable sections. And the issue is various forms of discrimination that are in existence in India, and the dimension is need for a comprehensive anti-discrimination law. What is the learning objectives here? One is to know about the Article 15 of the Constitution. See, Article 15 of the Constitution is not aimed only against the state. It is also applicable against private players too. This is one thing. So the scope of Article 15 is wider. The second thing is to understand the various forms of discrimination in India and also a need for an anti-discrimination law to prevent citizens from undergoing various forms of discrimination both from the state as well as from the private players too. We will look into some details given in the article. So the article mentions there are two forms of discrimination. One is direct and second one is indirect, and indirect forms of discrimination is more dangerous. And the article also mentions about a Delhi High Court judgment which was given in 2018 in the case of Madhu versus Northern Railways. According to this judgment, the court recognized that indirect forms of discrimination is present and also the impact of this indirect forms of administration, especially on vulnerable sections. This is one thing. Next, one more judgment which the article mentions, which is very much important here, is Zoroastrian Cooperative Housing Society versus District Registered Cooperatives. This is a judgment given by Supreme Court in the year 2005. And what is the findings of this judgment? The Supreme Court said that right to associate, which itself is a fundamental right under Article 19 of the Constitution, is given a preferential treatment or is given a priority when compared to Article 15 of the Constitution. So what this judgment says, see, you can discriminate if your right to associate, the fundamental right which is provided under Article 19, is at stake. So that is what this judgment is. In addition to this, the article also mentions about the recent initiatives by various members to introduce anti-discrimination bill. Now we will look into an Anti-Discrimination and Equality Bill 2017 which was introduced by Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament. Okay. Now it is brought in the backdrop of Rohit Vemala's tragic suicide. Okay. What the bill aims is that it tries to ensure equality to every citizen of the country by providing protection against all form of social discrimination, and for the first time it covered a wider ambit of various forms of discrimination. For example, it defines protected characteristics in relation to citizen, which means caste, race, ethnicity, descent, sex, gender identity, pregnancy, sexual orientation, religion belief, tribe, disability, linguistic identity, HIV status, nationality, marital status, food preference, skin tone, place of residence, place of birth or age. See how many forms of discrimination that this bill tried to cover. See, most of the times we witness, people they don't want to give rooms to non-vegetarians. They don't want to give rooms to the bachelors, right? So these forms of discrimination will be addressed if this equality bill comes into existence. Okay. The next article for discussion is no longer special. Now, the article gives a brief chronological occurrence of various events between India and Nepal with respect to the boundary issues. So, this information will be sufficient for us to write an answer with respect to India-Nepal relationship if a question is asked on it. This is first thing. And the second thing is that it wants both countries, both India as well as Nepal, to address the issue, boundary issues on war footing basis. Otherwise, the special relationship that used to exist between India and Nepal will be going to collapse forever. These are the two things which this article is trying to say to us. Now, regarding mains, it comes under GS paper 2, international relations, India and its neighborhood. And what is the issue? India-Nepal relationship. Dimension is boundary disputes between India and Nepal. These are the learning objectives. What is the first learning objective? We should know what are the reasons for the resurfacing of the dispute in the recent times. Why this dispute got resurfaced now. The second thing is to understand what the countries have to do to resolve the dispute from further aggravating. Now we will look into the details given in the article. See, recently Nepal Parliament passed second constitutional amendment bill which included territories like Limpiadura, Kalapani and Lipu Lake as part of Nepal. Now this constitutional amendment bill is a violation of the Treaty of Sugali that was signed between Nepal monarchy and the British Indian government. Now see this river here, Kali River. Now as per this Treaty of Sugali, the region east of this Kali River will be part of Nepal and the region west of this Kali River is part of India. Okay, but the problem is where this river originates. This is what the conflicting point. Now Nepal shows one region as point of origin for this Kali River and India shows one more point which is a point of origin for this Kali River. Though the boundary dispute between India and Nepal is an old one, but it recently got resurfaced after New Delhi published some new political maps reflecting the changes that it made in Jammu and Kashmir. And Nepal protested against it. And also recently Defense Minister inaugurated a road going through this territory for which also Nepal protested. So now these two instances gave a backdrop for resurfacing of the dispute between India and Nepal with respect to this region. And after these two instances, lot of rhetoric followed. For example, Nepal political leaders told that Indian virus is more dangerous than Chinese virus or Italian virus. And India said that Nepal is doing all these things on the behest of other country. So these two rhetorics further aggravated the situation between the two countries. The next article for discussion is making public transport safe during COVID-19. See, in the recent times, we have seen government stopped public transportation during the national lockdown period. Now government is trying to unlock the country from this lockdown phase. In this process, it is also trying to resume public transportation services. But the response from the public is so weak because of this fear of COVID-19 situation. Now the article is trying to discuss what are the guidelines that the government has to issue to instill confidence among the citizens so that they can commute using this public transportation system. So the syllabus mapping is, it comes under mains GS paper 2, government policies and interventions in the development of various sector. Here the sector is public transportation sector. So how government has to intervene in instilling confidence among the public so that they'll commute in this public transportation services, and the issues arising out of the design and implementation. And what is the issue here? Public transportation, and the dimension is making the public transportation safe. Now learning objective is to know about the chances of transmission through public transportation, and the second one is to understand about the things that have to be done to instill confidence in public transportation. Now we will look into the details given in this article. See, there is a significant drop in public transportation ridership across the world. It is not only in India we have seen a dip in public transport ridership. But why there is a dip in public transport ridership? This is because there is a well established fear of COVID-19 transmission. However, the article also argues that there is lack of clear research to prove how COVID-19 will be transmitted through this public transport commutation. And also it says that most of the metro rail journeys in India will be less than 20 minutes. So within this much of time, it is very hard for a person to get infected with high viral loads of COVID-19. So these are two things. And also there are some evidences to show that it is less risky to travel in an opened environment when compared to a closed AC bus. So because of all these things, we can't strongly establish the fact that public transport commutation is a risky thing. Now, however, to instill confidence, governments across the country, they have to do a lot. They have to try to instill confidence among the people by providing various guidelines. For example, recently Delhi Metro Rail Corporation has released a set of guidelines to tackle these social distancing and sanitization concerns. It also addressed various issues with respect to viral transmission through tokens, push buttons on lifts, and handrails. Now various other metro rail corporations also, they have to release similar type of guidelines so that proper sanitization will be provided in the metro rails, and which in turn instill a confidence among the public. In addition to this, there are some other steps that have to be taken to bring in confidence of the people in public transport commutation. For example, employing staff to wipe the hand grips at frequent intervals, because this is the one important source for transmission of virus to the individual. So you have to ensure that hand grips in both trains as well as in buses have to be cleaned in at a frequent intervals. The second thing is you have to ensure there is an external airflow to dissipate viral particles, and also paid staff or volunteers can be engaged in dispensing hand sanitizers on platforms. These are some guidelines or steps which governments can take to instill confidence so that people will commute in public transportation system. The next article for discussion is behind the curve. Recently, we have seen a GST Council meeting was held. Now, the article mentions what are the various decisions that are taken at this GST Council meeting. It also argues that whatever the decisions that are taken at this meeting are inadequate in addressing the concerns of the states and also in enhancing their fiscal capacity, which became too low during this lockdown period. Now the syllabus mapping is, it comes under JS paper 3 Indian economy issues relating to mobilization of resources, and the issue is GST Council meeting. Dimension is effect of lockdown on GST collections. Union Finance Minister announced in the GST Council meeting that just 45% of the indirect tax target had been met in this past 2 months where India witnessed lockdown. Now the learning objective is to know about the GST financial architecture between center and state and to know the impact of lockdown on GST collections. Now we will look into the various decisions taken at this GST Council meeting. One is the GST Council decided to relax late fees and interest payable for those taxpayers failing to file returns on time. This is one decision which GST Council have taken. Next one is for businesses with no tax liabilities under the indirect tax regime, the late fees were completely waived off. Now the intention behind these two decisions is to ease compliance deadline worries of small businesses. Now we will look into a GST timeline. So for the first time in 1986 and 87, there was a value addition tax that was introduced, and this is the first step towards GST. And later, Finance Minister Manmohan Singh introduced service tax. In 25, P. Chidambaram proposed goods and services tax from April 2010. And in 2008, a GST structure got finalized. And then in 2011, then Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee introduced Constitutional Amendment Bill. So the GST network for IT infrastructure got cleared by 2013. Now BJP government came to power in 2014 and Arun Jaitley introduced revised Constitutional Amendment Bill in the year 2014. With changes and discussions and further modification, finally the bill got passed and it came into effect from July 1st, 2017. Now we will look into the GST Council, very important body from Prelims point of view. It is a joint forum of the center and state. Who will head this GST Council? Union Finance Minister will be the chairman of the GST Council, and state finance ministers are the representatives of states in this GST Council. Now the council will act as a benchmark and it will guide the states and unions on various issues like tax rates, exemption lists, threshold limits, etc. Now the central government shall have a weightage of 1/3 of the total votes cast, and the state governments combinedly they'll have 2/3 of the share. The next article for discussion is in sync with technology. This article is about online education system. See, in the recent times we have discussed two articles. One article we discussed on 8th of June in our current affairs program, which mentions about 7 myths about online education system. For example, it says that online education is aimed only for young, it is not suitable for the aged people, and online teaching is not egalitarian. And it also gives a myth like how technology will eventually replace the teacher. So these are the 7 myths. These are some myths which the article was trying to address. And few days back we also discussed an article which criticizes the online education system. That article also mentions how online education system alters the offline classroom ecosystem. And this article is about the advantages online education system have over offline education system. For example, in the matters of accessibility, in the matters of affordability and quality, online education system is far better when compared to offline education system. This is what this article is trying to say. Now regarding syllabus mapping, it comes under issues related to education and also government policies and intervention in development of various sector. Here I mean education sector. Now what is the issue? Issue is about online education system, and the dimension is various benefits of online education system. The learning objective is to know about the various advantages of the online education system. We will look into the details given in the article. See, in the recent union budget, the government allowed universities to award fully online degree courses to the learners across the country. Now, this initiative was supported by various educational technology companies because they believed this decision will provide accessible, affordable, and quality education to the students across the country. Now, how online education will provide accessibility? One is it will remove the geographical constraint that is there, and also there is this opportunity to provide 24/7 services. So because of these two things, yes, we can achieve the accessibility. And how affordability can be achieved? Now as online degree scales up, the cost associated with the delivery of that will also come down. Now because of this, high quality education can be provided with more affordability. This is the second thing. Now regarding the third point, how quality will be ensured, and we have seen in the recent articles that they criticized online education because they compromise with quality. Even one of the myth with the online education system is that it cannot stand up to the quality standards. But the article says that online education system will provide quality. How? See, having no geographical constraints will lead to more competition among universities, and when there is more competition, obviously universities will start to invest in providing quality material and also in motivating the faculty in delivering learning outcomes. So because of this, there will be some quality consciousness which online education system will bring in. Of course, the article also says it is not that much easy to shift from offline education system to online education system, but how this can be done is that by providing or by usage of technology. So technology is an instrument which can allow this shift, and if one can use this technology, the classroom experience can be provided through this online education system. Next article for discussion is genetics to help diagnose diabetes. Of course, the content given in this article is very much useful from prelims point of view. Now see, there are two types of diabetes: type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. As per the standard textbook definition, type 1 diabetes is a situation where the body is not able to produce insulin. And mostly this situation occurs in children and in adolescents. And how you treat this type 1 diabetes patients? You have to give insulin injections. This is one case. and the other case is type 2 diabetes. In this type 2 diabetes, the body will produce insulin, but it is not able to produce adequate amount of insulin. Now it happens with those people who are almost above 40 years of age and who are a little bit overweight. Now what is the treatment you have to deal with type 2? There are some tablets that can be given to these types of patients. So what is happening in the recent times is that there are situations where children and adolescents are also getting type 2 diabetes, and there are situations where elderly people at the age of 40 or more than 35 or 40, they are getting type 1 diabetes. So distinction between these two diabetes is very much important to give a better treatment, otherwise you will end up in giving a wrong treatment. Now the article comes with something called genetic risk score. Now, based on this genetic risk score, you can anticipate or you can predict whether an individual will get type 1 diabetes or not. So, now this will help in diagnosing diabetes so that wrong treatment can be avoided. This is what the essence of the article. Regarding syllabus mapping, it comes under GS paper 3, awareness in the fields of biotechnology and also development of new technology. What is this new technology? Genetic risk score that can be used to diagnose diabetes. The issue here is diabetes and dimension is diagnosis of diabetes. The learning objective is to know about type 1 and type 2 diabetes and complexity involved in distinguishing between the two, and to know about the various types of diagnosis. Now we will look into the differences between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. This is very much important from prelims point of view. Type 1 diabetes, your body is no longer able to produce insulin. And type 2 diabetes, yes, your body is able to produce insulin, but it doesn't make enough of it. Okay. And the second one is usually develops during childhood, but can also develop at any age. And regarding type 2 diabetes, it can develop at any age, but it is most common in adults over 45 years of age. And the next is risk factor. One is family history. So if you have any genetic issues, then there are high chances of getting type 1 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes, overweight, and also some family history, high BP, these are the causes or these are the risk factors for an individual to get type 2 diabetes. And here we have symptoms, for example, frequent urination, mood changes, and unexplained weight loss are symptoms of type 1 diabetes. Of course, similar symptoms are there even for type 2 diabetes too. And what is the prevention? Right now we don't have any known prevention methods for type 1 diabetes, but for type 2 diabetes one has to follow healthy lifestyle, for example doing exercises and having right amount of food at right time. These are some things where you can do which can prevent type 2 diabetes. The next article for discussion is India looks to deploy naval liaisons. So recently India joined in Indian Ocean Commission. Now it aims to deploy naval liaisons to increase maritime domain awareness, especially with respect to Indian Ocean region. Regarding syllabus mapping, it comes under GS paper 2, international relations, effects of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest, and internal institutions and their mandate. Which is the international institution? Here we are speaking about Indian Ocean Commission. Now issue is Indian Ocean region, and dimension is strengthening security apparatus in the Indian Ocean region. How India is trying to strengthen it? By deploying this naval liaisons at Regional Maritime Information Fusion Center in Madagascar. And the learning objective is to know about the Indian Ocean Commission. Now we will look into Indian Ocean Commission. See, Indian Ocean Commission is an intergovernmental organization that was created in 1982, and it is composed of 5 African Indian Ocean nations. For example, this Vanilla Islands, see, Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, Reunion, and Seychelles. And what is its mission? Its mission is to strengthen the ties of friendship between the countries and to act as a platform for solidarity of the entire population of African Indian Ocean region. Recently, India joined this Indian Ocean Commission. So in that context, this is very much important from prelims point of view. Now we will look into some practice questions. Consider the following statements about GST Council. We have discussed about GST Council. Now it is a statutory body set up under the GST Act of 2017. It is chaired by Union Finance Minister. Every decision of the council shall be taken by at least half of the weighted votes of the members present and voting. Now which of the above statements is are incorrect? Please give your answer in the comment section. And the next question is, which of the following statements is correct about Article 15 of the Indian Constitution? We have discussed this Article 15(2) clause, right? It allows discrimination on grounds other than that of religion, race, caste, sex and economic status. Read this statement carefully. An anti-discrimination law is in existence to enforce various provisions of the Article 15. We have discussed that article which says something contradictory to this statement. So please give your answer in the comment section. So with that, we have done today's discussion. Thank you, one and all.